The engine hummed softly as I gripped the steering wheel, the road stretching endlessly before me. At 70, my hands weren't as steady as they used to be, but my heart was resolute. 600 miles. That's what lay between me and my daughter, Emily, who I hadn't seen in 3 years. Not since that awful fight, the one that left a chasm between us wider than any highway. I glanced at the passenger seat, where a small gift box sat, wrapped in pale blue paper with a tiny white bow. Inside was a silver rattle, engraved with her initials E.M., just like the one I'd given her mother when Emily was born. It was my peace offering, my way of saying I was sorry, even if words had always failed me. The dashboard clock glowed 2:37 a.m. I'd been driving since dusk, leaving behind my quiet little house in Cedar Falls, Iowa. The idea had struck me a week ago when I got the invitation in the Mylon elegant card announcing Emily's baby shower. My first grandchild. The thought of it made my chest ache with a mix of pride and regret. She hadn't called to invite me herself, but her friend, Sarah, had slipped the invite into my mailbox with a note. She'd want you there. Mr. Harlan, please come. I wasn't so sure, but hope is a stubborn thing, and it clung to me like dust on my old pickup truck. The road was lonely, save for the occasional semi roaring past. My mind wandered back to Emily as a girl, her pigtails bouncing as she ran through the backyard, giggling while I pushed her on the swing. Those were the days when she looked at me like I could fix anything: broken toys, scraped knees, even her nightmares. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being her hero. Maybe it was when her mother died, and I buried my grief in silence instead of talking to her. Maybe it was when she moved to Chicago for college and I didn't know how to bridge the distance. Or maybe it was that last argument, when she screamed that I didn't know her anymore, and I shouted back that she'd changed too much. Words like knives, cutting deeper than we meant. I rubbed my eyes, the fatigue creeping in. The radio played some old country tune, but I barely heard it. All I could think about was her face when I'd show up at the baby shower. Would she smile? Cry? Slam the door? I didn't know, but I had to try. The rattle in the gift box was my last chance to mend things, to show her I still loved her, even if I'd been too stubborn to say it. By dawn, I crossed into Illinois, the flat fields giving way to rolling hills. My back ached, and my coffee thermos was long empty, but the thought of Emily kept me going. I imagined her opening the gift, her fingers tracing the engraving, maybe remembering the stories I used to tell her about her mom. I pictured her friends, the balloons, the laughter, her world, so different from mine now. Would I even fit in? I shook off the doubt. This was about her, not me. Around noon, I stopped at a gas station to stretch my legs. The clerk, a young guy with tattoos creeping up his neck, gave me a curious look as I bought a bottle of water and a map, just in case my old GPS failed me. Long trip? He asked. I nodded, not feeling much like talking. Going to see my daughter, I said finally, my voice rougher than I intended. He smiled, like he understood. But how could he? He didn't know the weight of 30 years of mistakes riding shotgun with me. Back on the road, the miles blurred together. I thought about the last time I saw Emily. She'd come home for Christmas, her eyes guarded, her smile forced. We'd argued about her job, her boyfriend, her life choices, stupid things. Really. But they piled up until she stormed out, saying she needed space. Space. That word had haunted me ever since. I gave her too much of it, thinking it was what she wanted, but it only pushed us further apart. By late afternoon, I was close. The Chicago skyline loomed in the distance, all glass and steel, so different from the open fields I knew. My heart raced as I followed the GPS to a quaint suburb, where Sarah's house was. The baby shower was tomorrow, but I couldn't wait. I wanted to see Emily tonight, to catch her off guard, to show her I'd driven all this way just for her. I parked a block away, my hands trembling as I grabbed the gift box. The street was quiet, lined with neat lawns and blooming flowers. It felt like a place where Emily belonged, a place where she was building a new life, one I wasn't sure I had a place in. I walked up to Sarah's house, a charming two-story with a wraparound porch. Balloons were already tied to the railing, pink and blue, swaying in the breeze. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding like I was 20 again, asking Emily's mom out for the first time. I knocked on the door, clutching the gift box, and waited. Footsteps approached, and then the door swung open. It was Sarah, her face lighting up in surprise. "Mr. Harlan, you came," she said, her voice warm but cautious. "Is she here?" I asked, my throat tight. Sarah hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "She's inside, but maybe give her a heads up. Things have been tense." I nodded, though I didn't fully understand. I just wanted to see my girl. Sarah stepped aside, and I walked into the house, the air filled with the scent of flowers and baked goods. There she was, in the living room, laughing with a group of women, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. She looked radiant, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes bright in a way I hadn't seen in years. For a moment, I just stood there, drinking her in, my chest swelling with pride and pain. Then she saw me. Her laughter stopped, her face freezing. The room went quiet, all eyes on us. "Dad," she said, her voice a mix of shock and something else, anger. Maybe. Or fear. I took a step forward, holding out the gift box, my voice shaky. "Emily, I drove all this way. I wanted to surprise you." Her eyes narrowed, and she stood up, her hands clenched. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. The other women exchanged glances, and Sarah stepped closer, like she sensed trouble. "I got the invitation," I said, my words stumbling. I thought you'd want me here. For the baby. For you." Emily's face hardened, and she shook her head. "You can't just show up like this, Dad. Not after everything." Her voice cracked, and I saw tears in her eyes. But they weren't the kind I'd hoped for. They were angry, hurt. "You need to leave." My heart sank. "Emily, please. I brought you something." I held out the gift, but she didn't even look at it. "Sarah, call security," she said, her voice steady now, like she'd made up her mind. The words hit me like a punch. Security. On me. Her own father. I stood there, frozen, as Sarah hesitated, then pulled out her phone. The other women whispered, and I felt the weight of their stares. I wanted to argue, to beg, to explain, but my voice was gone. All I could do was clutch the gift box and walk out, the door closing softly behind me. I stood on the porch, the gift box heavy in my hands, as the sound of the door clicking shut echoed in my ears. The balloons bobbed mockingly in the breeze, their bright colors a cruel contrast to the ache in my chest. Security. My own daughter had called security on me. I wanted to pound on the door, to demand she listen, but my legs carried me back to the truck instead. I slid into the driver's seat, the familiar creak of the door grounding me, and stared at the gift box. The silver rattle inside was supposed to be a bridge, not another wall. I didn't drive away right away. I couldn't. The 600 miles I'd traveled felt like nothing compared to the distance between me and Emily now. I replayed her words. Her face. The way her hand had rested protectively on her belly. She was going to be a mother. And I was nothing but an intruder in her world. I leaned my head back, closing my eyes, and let the memories flood in. Emily at 5, clinging to my leg when I came home from work. Emily at 16, rolling her eyes when I tried to teach her to change a tire. Emily at 25, shouting that I didn't understand her life, her choices, her pain. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I never had. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky orange, when I finally started the engine. I didn't know where to go. Back to Iowa. To a motel. I drove aimlessly through the suburb, the neat houses blurring together. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a wild moment, I thought it might be Emily. But it was Sarah, texting, "I'm so sorry. Mr. Harlan. She's just emotional right now. Can we talk?" I pulled over, my fingers hovering over the screen. I wanted to ask why Emily hated me so much, what I'd done to deserve this. But all I typed was, "Where?" Sarah suggested a diner a few miles away, and I found myself there 20 minutes later, sitting in a booth with cracked red vinyl seats. The place smelled of coffee and grease. The kind of spot I used to take Emily to when she was little, back when pancakes could fix anything. Sarah slid into the booth across from me, her face apologetic. She didn't mean it. She said softly, "The security thing. She's just overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. I drove 600 miles. Sarah. I just wanted to see her. To be there for her. Sarah sighed, stirring her coffee. "I know. And I thought inviting you would help. But things are complicated. She hasn't told you everything." "Like what?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Sarah hesitated, glancing around the diner. Her fiancé, Mark, he's not exactly thrilled about you being here. He knows about your fight. And he's protective. Maybe too protective. And Emily's been under a lot of stress with the baby coming. She didn't expect you to show up unannounced." I clenched my jaw. Mark. I'd only met him once. At that tense Christmas visit. He'd seemed nice enough, but distant. Like he was sizing me up. "So, what?" He told her to kick me out. "Not exactly," Sarah said. "But he's been in her ear, and she's scared of messing things up with him. She loves him, Mr. Harlan, and she's trying to build something new, something stable. I think seeing you just brought everything back. Everything. The fight. The years of silence. The way I'd let her drift away. I rubbed my face, feeling every one of my 70 years. I didn't come to ruin her life. I said quietly, "I came to fix things." Sarah reached across the table, her hand resting lightly on mine. "I know. And deep down, she does too. But she's not ready. Not yet." I wanted to believe her. But the sting of Emily's words, "You need to leave," cut too deep. "What do I do now?" I asked, hating how lost I sounded. Sarah leaned back, thoughtful. "Give her a little time. Maybe write her a letter. Leave the gift with me. I'll make sure she gets it. She's stubborn. Like you. But she's not heartless." I nodded, though it felt like giving up. We talked a little longer. About the baby shower. About Emily's new life in Chicago. Sarah told me Emily was having a girl. Due in 2 months. A granddaughter. The thought made my heart twist, joy and pain tangled together. I handed Sarah the gift box, my fingers lingering on the ribbon. "Tell her I'm sorry," I said. "For everything." That night, I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled of stale smoke. and the bed creaked worse than my truck. But I didn't care. I sat at the wobbly desk, pulling out a notepad I kept in my bag. A letter, Sarah had said. I wasn't good with words. Never had been. But I owed Emily something. I started writing, the pen scratching against the paper. Each word a struggle. Dear Emily, I don't know where to start. I drove 600 miles to see you. To tell you I'm sorry. To be part of your life again. I messed up. Kiddo. I know that. I've always loved you. But I haven't always shown it the right way. That rat light was your mom's idea. Back when you were born. I thought it'd mean something to you. Like it did to me. I just want you to know I'm here. If you'll let me be. I'm so proud of you. And I can't wait to meet my granddaughter. I'll wait as long as it takes. Love. Dad. I folded the letter, my hand shaking, and tucked it into an envelope. It wasn't enough, but it was all I had. I drove back to Sarah's house in the morning, slipping the envelope and the gift box into her mailbox before heading back to the motel. The baby shower was today, and I wouldn't be there. The thought made my chest tight, but I couldn't force my way into Emily's life. Not anymore. The motel room felt smaller with each passing hour. I lay on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. The hum of the air conditioner, my only company. The baby shower would be starting soon, and I pictured Emily surrounded by her friends, opening gifts, laughing, maybe even forgetting I'd shown up at all. I wanted to be angry, to blame her for shutting me out, but all I felt was a hollow ache. I'd driven 600 miles for a chance to make things right, and now I was stuck in this dingy room, waiting for a sign that might never come. I spent the day wandering the motel parking lot, then the nearby streets, trying to keep my mind off the shower. I ended up at a park, where kids ran through a sprinkler, their laughter sharp and bright. I sat on a bench, watching them, remembering Emily at that age fearless, always running headlong into life. I'd been so proud of her then, so sure I'd always be her safe place. When had that changed? When had I become someone she didn't want around? By evening, I couldn't stand the waiting anymore. I drove back to the diner, hoping Sarah might show up with news. She didn't, but I ordered a coffee anyway, letting it go cold as I stared out the window. My phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls. Just me and my thoughts, circling like vultures. I thought about driving home, putting Chicago in my rearview mirror. But something held me back. Hope. Maybe. Or just stubbornness. Around 9. Sarah texted. She got the letter and the gift. She cried. Mr. Harlan. Give her time. I read the message over and over, my heart caught between relief and frustration. She'd cried. That meant something, didn't it? But time, what did that even mean? I'd already given her 3 years. How much longer could I wait? I drove back to Sarah Street, parking a safe distance away. The house was lit up, cars still lining the curb. The baby shower must have been winding down. I imagined Emily inside, holding the rattle, reading my letter. Did she feel anything like I did? Did she miss me? Even a little. I stayed there for an hour, watching shadows move behind the curtains, until the lights started going out. I drove back to the motel, my chest heavy with questions I couldn't answer. The next morning, I checked out of the motel, unsure of my next move. I didn't want to go home. Not yet. But I couldn't stay in Chicago either. Hovering like some ghost Emily didn't want to see. I ended up at a coffee shop, nursing a black coffee and flipping through a local paper. That's when I saw an ad for a community center hosting a senior storytelling group. It was a long shot, but I'd always liked telling stories, even if Emily was the only one who ever listened. Maybe it'd help, talking to strangers about the things I couldn't say to her. The group met in a small room with folding chairs and a coffee urn. There were about 10 people, all older, their faces lined with lies I could only guess at. The leader, a woman named Clara with kind eyes, asked us to share a story about family. When my turn came, I hesitated, then started talking about Emily. Not the fight, not the baby shower, but the good times her first bike ride. The way she'd beg for one more bedtime story. The words came easier than I expected. And when I finished, Clara smiled. "Sounds like you love her a lot," she said. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Driving back to the motel that evening, I felt lighter, like I'd left a piece of my pain in that room. I decided to stay in Chicago a few more days, just in case Emily reached out. I kept busy, visiting the community center again, even helping Clara set up chairs for the next meeting. She told me I had a knack for storytelling, that I should keep coming back. It wasn't much, but it was something to hold on to. On my third day in Chicago, Sarah called. Not texted, called. My heart leapt as I answered. Her voice bright but careful. "Mr. Harlan, Emily wants to talk. Not today, but soon." She's still processing, but she kept the rattle on her nightstand. That's a good sign, right? I gripped the phone, tears pricking my eyes. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "That's a good sign." The days in Chicago stretched into a week, each one a delicate balance of hope and patience. I'd settled into a routine: mornings at the coffee shop, afternoons at the community center, evenings staring at my phone, willing it to ring. Sarah's call had lit a spark in me, but it was fragile, easily snuffed out by doubt. Emily had kept the rattle on her nightstand. That image kept me going, a small anchor in the storm of uncertainty. I started attending the storytelling group regularly, finding comfort in the rhythm of it. Clara noticed my restlessness and suggested I write my stories down, maybe for Emily's daughter someday. The idea stuck with me. I bought a notebook and began jotting down memories: Emily's first steps, the time we built a snowman that looked more like a blob, the way she'd sing off-key to the radio in my truck. Writing them felt like preserving something precious, something I could give her even if she never spoke to me again. One afternoon, while I was at the community center, Clara handed me a flyer for a local craft fair. "You should go," she said. "It's good to get out, meet people. You're not here just to wait. You know." I wasn't so sure about that, but I went anyway, if only to fill the hours. The fair was bustling, with stalls selling handmade quilts and pottery. I wandered through, my hands in my pockets, until I stopped at a booth with tiny knitted baby booties. They were soft, pale pink, perfect for a newborn. I bought a pair, imagining my granddaughter wearing them, even if I never got to see it. That night, I added the booties to the growing pile of things I wanted to give Emily, things I hoped would say what my words couldn't. I wrote another letter, shorter this time, just a note to go with the booties. For my granddaughter. I hope she has your smile. I mailed it to Sarah, trusting she'd pass it along. It was all I could do: small gestures, scattered like breadcrumbs, hoping Emily would follow them back to me. On my 10th day in Chicago, Sarah texted me to meet her at the diner again. When I got there, she looked nervous, her fingers twisting a napkin. "Emily's been talking about you," she said. "Not a lot, but enough. She's still hurt, Mr. Harlan, but she's softening. The rattle, the letter, the Buddhist theory getting to her." I leaned forward, my heart racing. Did she say anything about meeting? Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. But she's not saying no anymore. That's progress." Progress. The word felt like a lifeline. I thanked Sarah and drove back to the motel, my mind buzzing. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where Emily and I could talk again. Maybe even laugh. I pictured her holding her baby, showing her the rattle, telling her about the grandfather who drove 600 miles just to say he was sorry. The next day, I went back to the community center, where Clara had roped me into helping with a kids' storytelling hour. I read to a group of wide-eyed children, my voice steady as I spun tales of adventure and love. One little girl, with pigtails like Emily's, asked if I had a daughter. I smiled, my chest tight, and said, "Yeah, I do. She's about to be a mom herself." The girl grinned, and for a moment, I felt like I was talking to Emily again, like time hadn't stolen so much from us. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dad, it's Emily. I'm not ready to see you yet, but thank you for the rattle. And the booties. I'll call soon. I promise." I stared at the screen, tears blurring the words. It wasn't much, but it was everything. She'd reached out. She'd called me Dad. I wrote back, keeping it simple, "I'll be here, kiddo, whenever you're ready." Then I leaned back in the motel chair, the weight of 600 miles lifting just a little. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Emily's text was a crack of light in the dark, but it didn't erase the waiting. I stayed in Chicago, clinging to her promise of soon. The motel clerk started recognizing me, even gave me a discount for being a regular. I didn't know how long I could keep this up. My savings weren't endless, and Cedar Falls felt like another lifetime. But going home meant giving up, and I wasn't ready for that. Not when Emily had finally opened the door, even if just a sliver. I filled my days with small distractions. The storytelling group became my anchor, a place where I could share pieces of my life without judgment. Clara encouraged me to keep writing, and I filled pages with stories from my granddaughter, tales of her mom as a fearless little girl, of the father who loved her even when he didn't know how to show it. I started to see myself differently through those stories, not just as a man who'd failed his daughter, but as someone who'd tried, even if imperfectly. One morning, I drove to a park near Sarah's house, not to spy, but just to feel closer to Emily. I sat on a bench, watching joggers and dog walkers, and wondered what her life was like now. Did she still love to paint? Did she still hum while she cooked? I didn't know these things anymore, and that hurt more than I could say. I pulled out my notebook and wrote another story. This one about a father and daughter who got lost in a forest but found their way back by following the stars. It was corny, maybe, but it felt true. Sarah kept me updated, her text a lifeline. Emily was talking about me more. She said she'd shown the rattle to Mark, told him about the letters. He wasn't thrilled, but he wasn't shutting her down either. "She's trying to figure out how to let you in," Sarah wrote. "It's just hard for her." I wanted to ask why, to demand answers, but I knew better. Emily would tell me when she was ready, or she wouldn't. All I could do was wait. A week after her text, I got another one. "Can we meet? Coffee shop on Elm Street. Tomorrow at 10. My heart stopped, then raced. I read it again, making sure it was real. Emily wanted to see me. I typed a quick "I'll be there" and spent the rest of the day pacing, my mind a tangle of hope and fear. What would I say? How could I make her see I was sorry without messing it up again? The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop early, my hands sweaty as I clutched a cup of decaf. The place was cozy, with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh pastries. I chose a table by the window, where I could see the street, and waited. Every time the door opened, my heart jumped. When Emily finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was shorter, her belly rounder, but it was her eyes that hit me, still the same deep brown. still carrying that spark I'd always loved. She saw me and hesitated, then walked over, her steps slow. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice soft but guarded. She sat down, her hands resting on her belly, and I noticed the rattle's chain peeking out of her purse. "Hi, kiddo," I said, my voice cracking. "You look beautiful." She gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks for coming," she said, like I was the one who'd traveled 600 miles. "I didn't expect you to stay in Chicago this long." "I didn't expect you to call," I admitted, "but I'm glad you did." She looked down, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. "The rattle, it reminded me of Mom. I didn't know you'd kept it all these years." "I kept a lot of things," I said. "For you. For her." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years between us. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was so mad at you, Dad. For so long. You shut me out after Mom died. You didn't talk to me, didn't ask how I was. And then that fight, you made me feel like I wasn't enough." Her words cut deep, but I didn't look away. "I know," I said. "I was wrong. I was hurting, and I didn't know how to handle it. I thought giving you space was what you needed, but I just pushed you away." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I needed you, Dad. Not space. You." I reached for her hand, half expecting her to pull away, but she didn't. "I'm here now," I said. "If you'll let me be." She squeezed my hand, just a little, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe we could find our way back. The coffee shop meeting was a start, fragile but real. Emily and I didn't fix everything in that hour, but we really talked for the first time in years. She told me about her life, her fears about motherhood, her love for Mark despite his flaws. I told her about the storytelling group, the notebook I'd been filling for her daughter. We laughed a little, cried a little, and when she left, she hugged me. It was brief, tentative, but it was enough to make those 600 miles worth every aching mile. I stayed in Chicago another week, meeting Emily a few more times. We kept it simple: coffee, a walk in the park, a quiet lunch. Each time, the distance between us shrank a little more. She showed me ultrasound pictures, her face glowing as she talked about her baby girl. I told her stories about her mom, things I hadn't shared in years. And she listened, her eyes soft. We didn't talk about the fight or the baby shower incident, but it hung between us, a wound we were both learning to let heal. One afternoon, she invited me to her apartment. It was small but warm, filled with plants and art I knew she'd painted. Mark was there, his greeting polite but cool. I didn't push, didn't try to win him over. I was there for Emily, not him. She showed me the nursery, a tiny room with a crib and the pink booties I'd sent sitting on a shelf. The rattle was there too, next to a framed picture of her mom. "She'd be so excited," Emily said, her voice catching. "She'd love being a grandma." "She'd be proud of you," I said, and I meant it. Before I left Chicago, Emily asked me to come back when the baby was born. "Not right away," she said, smiling, "but soon. She'll need her grandpa." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and hugged her again, longer this time. The drive back to Cedar Falls was different from the one to Chicago. The road was the same, the miles just as long, but I felt lighter, like I'd left some of my regrets behind. I kept the radio off, letting my thoughts wander. I thought about my granddaughter, about the stories I'd tell her, the mistakes I wouldn't make again. I thought about Emily, about the years we'd lost and the ones we still had. When I got home, My house felt quieter than ever, but not empty. I pulled out my notebook and started writing again. This time a letter to my granddaughter, to be opened when she was older. I told her about her mom, her grandma, and the grandfather who drove 600 miles to find his way back to family. I told her about love, about forgiveness, about how sometimes the longest journeys aren't measured in miles. A month later, Emily sent me a picture of her newborn daughter, Lily, wrapped in a blanket, the silver rattle in her tiny hand. The text read, "She's perfect. Dad, come meet her soon." I smiled, tears in my eyes, and started packing my bag. 600 miles was nothing when it came to family.